Trooper Don, Chopper Dave, Stripper Todd. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, bro. Man of many nicknames. I'll take any and all of them. Been called worse.
Well, you got to say the man with a lot of nicknames usually means there's a lot of friends because I don't think one person is going to be making up all those nicknames. So I think you're doing something right here. And I just want to give a little backstory for everybody. Dave is his real name. Don, Todd, Dave, whatever these nicknames are, but Dave is his actual name. We
Correct.
met at a retreat. It was only like 3 weeks ago. And it's kind of crazy how a lot of people are saying at their retreat. It was at a Ryan Sprague's retreat and Alex Morningstar. And we all are saying, like, it feels like we've known each other a whole heck of a lot longer. We were only there for 6 days, but it was 6 days of very, I don't even know if intensive is the right word, but it was there's a lot of depth to the relationships that were built there in a very short amount of time. And it feels like, it was 6 days. It felt like we knew each other for 6 months. So I just kind of want to have you start off by sharing a little bit about yourself, because I feel like what I know about you is maybe something that other people don't know. And seeing Dave going out there, kicking ass, taking names, and basically everything he did from Can Jam, we were basically undefeated towards the very end, but we don't count the last couple games there. Basically undefeated in Can Jam. Dude's going out there running, doing all these things inspired to me to get back in my running game, which has been, we'll dive into that a little bit later. It's definitely been a challenge. I just want to have you share a little bit about you and what you're about.
I appreciate you, brother. And thank you for having me on the show and being able to chat with everybody, all the listeners here. And it's really crazy that you said we've only known each other 3 weeks, because that's accurate. And when you said that, I literally sat back and went, oh my God, like, because it feels like 3 years or 6 months or, something along those lines, a much longer period than what it is. And I think that speaks to the depth of the relationships that were built at that retreat, as you said. So, really great to meet everybody, really great to, be there with guys who are in their own way, on their own path, making a difference in the lives of the people around them, and that's something that is very inspiring to me, being around all you guys. So it goes both ways, bro. It goes both ways. Um, but the biggest thing for me is being able to have the freedom and flexibility to live the life that I really want to live. I was talking to my partner last night, my girlfriend Ruslana, and I said something along the lines of, or she asked me a question of like, what's your favorite part about life? Like, your favorite part about the life that we live. And I thought about it for a while. And the thing that I came up with was my favorite part about life is living, in, like, with capital letters, living, not simply just being alive or existing, but living life with a passion and a purpose, and, going out there and accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish, or being on the path to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. So those are the things that drive me. I want to make a difference in the lives of those around me, and I want to have fun doing it and live a, very healthy and impactful life. So from Richmond, Virginia, pretty much born and raised, just outside of Richmond now. And I do travel a lot, so I don't feel like I got stuck, but I do have the blessings of having a lot of friends and family here from, growing up, and just went camping with 5 buddies from high school, one from my neighborhood from when I was like 8 years old. This past weekend, got off the grid, did some hiking on the Appalachian Trail. I really, really, really love being able to express myself physically, get outdoors, reconnect to nature, and help people do the things that they want to do. Help people get creative, help people clear space, and live, in capital letters.
I love it. Well, you mentioned the living. I think that's such a, big observation of nature. And I can't remember who said it, but I think it might have been Joel Salatin. Life wants to live. And, just going outside, even just right before we were recording this, and just looking at the grass and seeing all these tiny little bugs the flies, these tiny little things. I don't even know what the hell they are. The gnats, all these different little microorganisms, they're just living and they're just there at all points. And I had this thought of, as humans, modern day humans, we often think that, we go into the grass, it's just us and, the grass and the trees, but there's so many different layers to life. And like you said, going out and hiking, going out and camping, reconnecting with life, I think allows me and allows a lot of people to really remember, wow, I haven't been living. I haven't been experiencing the full capacity of life, experience all the depths and the layers of life. And I think that's where, watching you, like you said, expressing yourself physically, as I said in the beginning, I drew a lot of inspiration on the path of running. And I had this realization that, I've always said, oh, I'm not a runner. I don't like running. And I had this thought the other day. I was like, I think that thought might be bullshit. I think that might just be bullshit, that I've just been, conditioning myself, my own beliefs, saying I don't like running, all these different excuses really. And then recognizing, like, when I run, I actually like it. I just don't like the thought of running because I've told myself I don't like running.
It's a
And
story.
it's a story. It
Yeah,
is absolutely a story. And, it was reminding me that, we want to do more human things. And running is a human thing. Running is a very human thing. So I'd love to have you just dive into obstacle course races, running, which I think are very much living and also just kind of inherent to the human nature. So what kind of got you interested in that? And how would you recommend, people kind of take the first steps into experimenting with those avenues?
yeah. I was thinking about like I was thinking about my mom a second ago, and she used to tell me that I always used to love leaping and falling on the ground as a kid. Just anywhere I could just run, jump, and just land and roll and laugh, and I'd get up and do it again. Play in the creeks, playing sports with the neighborhood kids and whatnot. And I've always been drawn to outdoors. I've always been a high energy kid, right? Played soccer my whole life really, but my formative years were all soccer, right? Love the game. I watched the Champions League final at the retreat in the halfway middle of through ceremony. It was a beautiful thing. Go Chelsea, winners, champions. Got into powerlifting in college, like really seriously, and ended up putting on about 50 pounds. Dove into it for 4 straight years, and because of that, really expanded my interest in movement and in nutrition and in how to better oneself physically, right? Before it was about soccer, it was about the game. Like I'd run, but I didn't really, like just go run laps, go run sprints. Like there was no concept of programming or, anything like that, right? Go run, get better, play better soccer. Cool. Right. And then powerlifting. And then later on I was a strength and conditioning coach for about a year at the University of Richmond. Worked with football, men's soccer, women's soccer, a little bit of field hockey, a little bit of lacrosse. Got to really learn how to put a program together from a macro level, right? In that same time frame, I fell out of love with exercise. I fell out of love with the gym. I was spending so much time in the gym, helping other people in the gym, left that gym, went to my side job at a gym. Then I wanted to work out, and then I didn't want to work out, right? But to tie it in here, I left my financial planning career I left my coaching career to start a financial planning career, which I did for about 8 years. And I was in the process of building that career in the out of college and as a 23-year-old kid, like really go-getter, like grinding, dude. So exercise in the gym for the first time in a long time fell by the wayside, right? As I was, working on the job, building the network, had the partner, et cetera, et cetera. Kept a lot of that weight that I had gained, and it started to, maybe the ratios started swapping the other direction. I was going to a couple too many happy hours a week. Let's put it to you that way. I was living with a couple guys at the time, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, come in here. I see something, you know, or I found something on YouTube you guys might like." And I remember it's like 2013. It's summer. We're tossing the football. I'm fat now, bro. Like fat. Uh, and we watched this video of a Spartan race, and you know, a Spartan race. Spartan is just a brand of obstacle course racing. It's like Tough Mudder or Savage Race or Rugged Maniac or a lot of these, right? It's the brand that I believe and that, you know, many people believe is the gold standard of obstacle course racing. But obstacle course racing is a race, typically in natural terrain, wherever, you know, the features are of the location that one's in, and it encompasses running, jumping, sometimes throwing something, sometimes swimming, sometimes a lot of like monkey bars or ropes, or, you know, carrying buckets or sandbags, or, you know, just all kinds of outdoor stuff, right? And I ended up signing up with one buddy for a race in 2013 that was about 7 miles, and it was 2 hours away from Richmond. So we're like, yeah, we'll do this, no problem. Up and down a ski like slope, or at a ski resort, right, like Wintergreen. And the race totally and completely kicked my ass, like utterly and savagely destroyed me, right? And I remember bitching to my buddy Pat, who ran it with me, and we're like going up and down the hills, and this was a really vivid moment and vivid memory of mine. But you know, we were going up and down, you know, these hills just over and over and over again, and you know, my legs are cramping, you know, like everything's cramping, I'm fucking hot, like the whole 9 yards, right? And I turn a corner, and I just finished saying to Pat, God, my legs hurt. And I turn a corner, and we see a group of maybe 15 or 20 people, full military fatigues, full military gas masks, and it's Operation Enduring Warrior, which is an organization that helps wounded soldiers and soldiers who have lost limbs specifically, you know, adaptive athletes get back into the world of athletics, right? And, you know, let's say there's 15 people there, right? So there should be 30 legs. Like there might have only been 20 total legs, you know? And so if there's 15 people, there should be 30 arms. Like, well, there's probably 15 or 20 arms, right? Collectively. And that shut me up real quick. And it put a lot of things into perspective for me really quickly. Spartan has a tagline, or had a tagline for a long time, of "You'll know at the finish line," right? So I finished that race, you know, with a totally different attitude than when I, you know, 30 minutes earlier when I saw that. Totally forgot over the course of the next year, like how difficult the race was, but it started to get my motivation going a little bit, right? Ran out did that same race again the next year, and did a little better. And I thought to myself, like, well, holy moly, if I actually try, you know, you know, start to get fit again, start to try to, you know, figure this thing out, I could potentially get good at this. And so I ran like 3 races in 2015 and 6 races in 2016 and 12 races in 2017, and just snowballed. Started to really hone in on various aspects of obstacle course racing, or running, or, you know, loaded carries, or whatever it may be, and realize that if you put in the effort in these various areas, then good things happen. So, like running specifically, I'm curious to hear your experiences with running lately. But running is a great example of that. Like, in, you know, to your point, returning back to being human. I mean, man, it's not a whole lot more human than
Right.
walking or running on your 2 feet. So,
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely have felt the draw towards the obstacle course races for a while. And I feel like for me, I always want to do with the community. And I was at a good deal of trouble trying to, you know, convince people to do it with me. So one thing I definitely want to do is next time you do one, I want you to let me know, because I want to come on down for the next obstacle course race in Virginia, or wherever it ends up being, because it's on the list. And if it's this fall, let's do it this fall. If it's the summer,
right.
so this summer, you know, I'm ready to do it. So you let me know, dude.
I got one this Saturday. It might be a little too soon for
That's a
you.
little too soon. I got some plans this Saturday, but you know, a little bit more advance
Yeah.
notice will give me, because like you said, I mean, I have no idea how well I'm going to do. I mean, I was a swimmer in high school. I've done a lot of rock climbing. I feel like I'm a pretty decent athlete in terms of well-balanced mobility, you know, flexibility, strength, endurance. You know, I do a lot of hiking. So I feel like it probably would kick my ass, but I would definitely survive. I feel confident in the fact that I'd make it to the finish line, which is,
No doubt.
like you said, kind of step one and then kind of progressing from there. But yeah, I think that every time I do these type of activities, like I said, the swimming, the rock climbing, hiking, these things are just so innate to the human body and they just feel so good. I think some of my favorite workouts are going on hikes, are
Mhm.
swimming, hiking, these natural, pieces of the human condition or the human, innate desire to move the body. And as it relates to running, so I never liked running. And my sophomore year of high school, I joined the cross country team to, you know, try to make myself like running. And so my buddy and I, we were like, all right, let's do it together. Neither of us were runners. I played football before and then I got a concussion. So I was like, I don't want to do football anymore. And they were both in the fall season. So we were running, about 3 miles. As like over the course of time, like, all right, we can do 3 miles pretty easily. And the first day cross country, it's like, all right, we're gonna do a 5 mile warm up. And I remember me and my buddy looking at each other, was like, are you shitting me? Like, is this like we thought 5 miles was gonna be like the max. So I got if
The
we can do
long run,
three, right? We can make our way up to five, but we got three down. And it was like 5 miles was like, or what maybe it wasn't five the warm up, it was like three or four was a warm up, but then we did like 6 or 8 or something after that. And I remember I think I lasted about 4 weeks before I got like stress fractures in my hip and just like my body wasn't ready for it. And I think from that point, that was kind of the start of the story of running's not for me. I'm not a
yeah.
runner. I don't like running. And again, then I was also really good at swimming. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not a runner. I'm just a swimmer. Kind of, made that story up in my mind. And, I played lacrosse and I played defense. So defense, if anybody listening doesn't know about lacrosse, I had the 6 foot pole. So I got the long pole. I'm not doing a whole heck of a lot of run. I'm mostly smacking people, picking up balls, protecting the goalie, all these type of things. So not a lot of running, but, a little bit. So I do a little bit of running, but over the years, then I'd pick up biking. When I was at college, I had my bike, just zip around on my bike everywhere. Basically, just using all these different modalities to avoid running, but kind of still get that, cardiovascular effect with swimming and biking, and the two pieces of the triathlon that aren't running.
Hmm.
And always
The two
wanted to
pieces I ain't touching. So
well, again, it's like it makes me realize when I saw you running that it was like I've been avoiding this for so long that I gotta hit this thing head on. So when I got back from the retreat, which was, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago or so, something like that, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I told myself I was going to run for 100 days straight and quickly realized that was going to lead to another cross country type of incident where my body was not going to be ready. So I remember first 4 days were good. Well, I'd say the first 2 days were great. Awesome. Felt good. Third day was a little tough. Fourth day was challenging. Fifth day was pretty hard. And by the sixth day, I think all I could do was like run to the end of my yard and back. And I was like, my body could barely lift my freaking legs up. So I've taken a step back from that and reevaluated and decided, that now that my body's feeling better, I've actually just got into a structured strength training routine for the first time in 3 years since I tore a muscle in my back. So feeling physically strong again for the first time in a while. And what I'm going to add on to that, the layer I'm going to add on to that is see how many days it takes me to get to 100 days of running. Instead of running 100 days straight, because if I need to listen to my body is what it comes down to. So maybe it takes me 150 days to do 100 days running or 200 days, every other day, whatever it is. So I'm reevaluating and
that's smart.
recognizing the fact that, if I just do 100 days straight, I'm going to destroy my body. I'm not even going to physically be able to do it. So I'm going to
Yeah.
see how many days it takes me to do 100 and then, do that again. Maybe that's next year. Maybe if it takes me 300 days, it takes me a full year to do 100 days. And maybe, all right, so if I get 300, let's see if I can get down to 250 next year and get down to 200 and just see, and that's going to be a long journey, but I'm going to, that's kind of the target I'm moving towards right now.
Yeah, setting that trajectory more in line with how an airplane takes off as opposed to the rocket ship that people like to think about and say and focus on these days makes sense to me in a lot of ways, right? Because there's an old quote, I think it's Jim Rohn or something along those lines, but it's something along the lines of we overestimate what we can do in a day or a month or a year and vastly underestimate what we can do in 3 or 5 or 10 years, right? So when when setting those goals, right? Um, in many ways, it comes down to identities, right? The identity and the stories you tell yourself about yourself, or the stories I tell myself about myself, or the stories the listener tells, about themselves, right? Uh, After my powerlifting days, I had in my mind that, you know, I'm a strength athlete for so long. And it took a pretty serious back injury a couple years ago, a very serious back injury a couple years ago, for me to let go of that identity, the remnants of that identity, and be able to shed those layers and shed that trauma and, be able to heal from that. Right. Um, Similarly, right, taking on the identity of a runner, or better yet, taking on the identity of I'm a human being, like I'm a human doing, right? I move like a human, because ultimately what that means, and especially when it relates to obstacle course racing, is the specialist will very rarely win an obstacle course race. Meaning a powerlifter is going to crush all the obstacles but get hammered by the running, and a marathoner is going to do great on the running and not, be able to have the upper body strength or the overall strength to be able to do the carries or the obstacles, right? And so the best athlete is going to be the one that's an 8 out of 10 across the board. And being able to pick up those little areas that one is, maybe not as strong in, means that you're going to be a better overall athlete. And then if we're switching identities, right, realizing that identities can be fluid, right? Like, it's a really interesting exercise to think about who one is becoming, right? Like, write down all the things you've been, write down all the things you think you are, and write down all the things you're becoming. Like, I've been a power lifter, but I wouldn't identify as a power lifter now, right? That's an interesting exercise, because it shows us that identities can be fluid. And then when we get these ideas in our head, and these motivations in our head, and when we can put ego aside, which is key, bro, that's been something I've learned over time, the hard way, over and over and over and over and over again, is being able to listen when your body is whispering before it smacks you across the face or punches you in the nose, right? And so kudos to you for doing that, right? And shifting the goal, shifting the trajectory, putting the trajectory a little bit farther out, so that it allows you to have more sustained growth over time and build up the foundation, build up literally the connective tissue, and literally the foundation to the running. That's such a metaphor for so many different things. I love it.
Absolutely. And like you said, it was me learning the hard way. My ego has gotten me in trouble more times than I can even count on my hands. So learning from that, and learning from the great pain teacher, who has oftentimes in the past been the teacher I needed for me to actually start listening. Um, it made me realize, I'm about to go down an old pattern of using my ego to drive my body, which is not the best way for my body to work. And so recognizing that, I think, is really important. And a big thing that, like you said, is our image and our self-image. And that's been a big thing that I've been, really recognizing lately and becoming very mindful of, is, what image am I putting out to the world?
Hmm.
And I think a big thing that I've noticed right now is, looking in my closet, I still have some clothes I had from in high school. And sometimes even just like, I don't want to put them on, because it's like, it kind of reminds me of like, that's from when I was in high school. And so that was a big thing that, like, I would not consider myself to be materialistic in the slightest. Like, you can throw me in a fucking tent and, have a nice farm, and I'm good to go. But sometimes it is nice to, have some nice things, have some nice clothes. And sometimes I think I kind of get into this scarcity mode and get into this, like, almost like it's like a badge of honor. It's like, oh, I've held on to these clothes for so long, I don't have to buy new clothes, whatever. And then recognizing, like, but is that the image I really want to be portraying? Not just to the world, but to myself.
Hmm.
Like, is this what I want to be wearing? Like, right now I got an organic cotton t-shirt on, like a nice little collar. Like, it feels cool. It's fresh. I just got it not too long ago, and it's like, it feels good. Like, it's fresh energy, and it's the new version of me. So I think that creating that image, not only in our minds, and like you said, writing these things down with our thoughts and where our awareness is, but also just the environment around us. I think so often, like, I have a lot of these things, whether it's, the background of my phone. sometimes I've had the same back on my phone for like years and I don't even realize what it is. And then all of a sudden my awareness, like it's just numbed out to it. And then I'm like, why is that out the background of my phone? Like that is such an old version of me. And I think like it comes down to with anything is the story, the story we're telling ourselves. Why am I attached to this? Why do I want to be X, Y, and Z? Why am I still acting in X, Y, and Z way? And I think that the stories are incredibly powerful. I know that's a big topic that you have a lot of passion for.
100%, man. Stories become our reality, right? And it's how we perceive things. It's how we perceive things. Stories are broken down into the words that we're using, right? And the stories that we tell ourselves, again, become that reality. Like if I say abracadabra, what do you think of?
I think of a magician.
Magic. Every time, right? Abracadabra is an Aramaic term. It's been around for like 5,000 years. It's a language of the Old Testament, right? And it means with my words I create, or with my words I influence. You remember taking spelling as a kid, right? The formation of words, right? The definition of a spell is a word or collection of words of great influence, right? So abracadabra, with my words I create, boom, right? So when we're speaking, we're casting spells, quite literally, right? And whether it's the law of attraction or the reticular activating system, or attention goes where attention flows, or any of those things, right? Words are really, really, really powerful. And what I've found is you can eat all the kale you want, you can lift all the weights you want, run all the miles you want, do all those other things, but if your head and your heart aren't straight, it's just not going to matter, or matter as much, right? So the biggest things that I found with stories is when we can create, or when we can clear the shit out, when we can clear the negative self-talk out, when we can address the thing that keeps popping up that we keep shoving down, or the static that's in our head, or the page that's literally right in front of our eyes, where we can take that and put that at arm's length and move through it, right? Now we've got the space, we've taken out those trash bags, right? We've got the space to be able to do the decorating we want, to be able to get the new clothes, to get the new chi in, to get the new energy in, right? But we got to clear that space first, right? Once we clear that space, once we get the new chi going, we can create what we want to create moving forward. And a lot of people are like banging their heads against the wall trying to create, but not realizing that they don't have any bandwidth for it. They don't have the space for it. They don't have the environment for it within themselves. So what I've found is a lot of people turn to fitness and nutrition, fitness and dieting, right? Diet and health. And coaches like you and I, for a very long time, worked with people on, in many ways, shifting the focus away from just the gym or away from just the diets and into holistic practices, right? Because sun, vitamin D, drinking more water, and breathing better, those are some really low-hanging fruits that, quite honestly, like, we could hang up the podcast right now, maybe add walking to that equation, and like,
Right.
go follow that, and you're great, right? And those things don't address the head and the heart stuff, right? And so you can be out in nature, but if you're just shit talking yourself the whole time, you're in a negative feedback loop, like, that's not as effective, right? Or we can drink all the water, but if you're still thinking about that thing that happened when you were 12, right? Or that thing that your partner said to you last week, and you're just can't get out of your head, right? The water's not going to be as effective. Right? And it sounds silly, but it's
Right.
real.
It
Yeah.
is. And that's one thing I love about the check system is 6 foundation principles: moving, thinking, breathing, nutrition, hydration, sleep. That's it. And like you said, we can add some different layers in there, like lowering stress levels, getting out in the sun. But inevitably, if you're focusing on your 6 foundation principles, those things are going to come. Your stress levels are going to go down if you're moving better, if you're sleeping better, if you're breathing more effectively, thinking better thoughts. Because, like you said, I mean, you and I can go on a hike, do the same thing, have the most beautiful hike. There's waterfalls everywhere. There's freaking butterflies and toucans and, whatever animals we love. And you could be thinking, man, this is freaking the best day ever. Like, look at all this beautiful stuff. And I could be thinking, oh man, I have to pay my bills. Oh shit, did I respond to that person? Oh, I think I said the wrong thing. And it's like we can be in the exact same position, having the exact same experience, but thinking very different things. And that is going to change the entire chemistry in our body. Like you said, with the water consuming, the food we're eating, if you're eating from a state of stress, your body is not absorbing that the same way as if you even just take like 3 breaths before you eat, lower those stress levels.
That exact thing that you just said relates so well to the things that we think about that stress us out, right? So what story work is it's changing the relationship to the things that we've experienced in the past by changing our physiological state in the present while we go through that experience, right? So, picking something that happened, titling it, making it a story, writing it down on paper, right? Reading it out loud, slowing it down, maybe breathing in between, taking time to reflect, to check in with the body after each of those steps. Now, after that 3rd or 4th or 5th round of that, now we're in a parasympathetic state when we're going through and remembering the very stressful thing, very sympathetic thing that has been bothering us, right? And we're allowing that emotions to move through our body and ultimately out of our body, right? There's a great book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? And whether you've read that book or not, the premise is that when trauma happens, it stays until we clear it, right? And it shows up in other areas of our body, right? So changing your emotional state when you are, or if changing your physical state when you're going through emotional things, or even simply being aware of your emotional and physical state as you're going through physical things, like on a hike or while eating your food or being very grateful or being very present. Those can all affect not only how you feel now, but how you feel now and how you act in the present affects all the future versions of yourself.
100%. And I think a big thing that you talked about there is just the fact of the awareness and being open to change. Because I know that there's a lot of us out there, myself included at times, that we kind of have this attachment to scarcity, this attachment to being a victim. And that's an easy trap to fall into because, a lot of times in our society nowadays, we glorify that. And, like the squeaky wheel gets the oil a lot of times, which is, of course, we want to be supporting the people in that position. But when it comes to our own mental beliefs and our own mental actions, we don't want to be walking around in victimhood mentality, walking around in scarcity mode all the time. Because, like, what the hell is that going to get us? Not much. Yeah, maybe it'll get us a little attention, which gives us a little dopamine hit and makes us feel like, we're important because people care about us and all that. But at the end of the day, we want to focus, like you said, in moving those emotions and not just getting stagnant with them. I'm not really an anxious person, but when I feel anxiety coming on, it's usually because I haven't moved enough. Or it's because I'm not breathing fully. Maybe I kind of have a little forward head posture. So my mouth is, my jaw is open. I'm breathing through my mouth. And it's like, hold on. Let me just get myself back to alignment.
Yep.
And usually that's for me, it's through breathing and moving. Those are the 2 things that instantly get me back. If I feel any sort of anxiety, any sort of stress, it's like, hold on, either pause and breathe or move your body because you've been sitting too long. And those 2 are, if I'm feeling any type of way that's not, stinking thinking, victimhood mentality, anything like that, move and breathe, feel a lot better.
I love it. And that's the recipe for so many things. It's interesting you mentioned the victim mentality. I've got the definition on my screensaver here, actually.
Nice.
As a reminder, the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So it's an acquired personality trait. meaning you can unacquire that shit. You can lose that thing. You can sell it. You can get rid of it, right? Um, you know, a lot of us grow up with the victim mentality. A lot of us inherit a lot more than just our eye color from our parents, and from the environment around us. And so whether you want to call it yoga or qigong or tai chi, or I love it was either you or Jordan or Eddie said it's just moving and breathing, just moving and breathing, right? Bringing focus and attention and awareness to yourself, to your breath, and that tends to help people find their center, find their present, find their now, right? And then it goes down to, how's your self-talk? What words are you using with yourself? What words are you using with other people? And are they moving you forward or tearing you down?
Yeah, and I think that the self-talk is something that oftentimes we're not even aware of, because if we have been in that victimhood mentality, that conditioning to that's just our normal way of operation is kind of, looking for the negatives, being in that victimhood mentality, having the poor me, feeling like we're not good enough. We might not even be aware of these negative thoughts. And that's where I think working with a coach or a mentor and having someone call you about, hey, did you hear what you just said? That can be incredibly powerful. Like when I'm talking to one of my mentors asking for advice, and basically basically coming to them just
Yeah,
complaining
no doubt.
is really
Of
oftentimes when
course.
I reach out to my mentors is when I'm in that negative state. So and they're just like, listen to
Yeah.
yourself, listen to what you're saying. No shit, you're not getting the results you want. Because listen to the words you're saying. Oh, I've been trying everything. I can't do it. I'm stuck. Just like what results is that going to give that you're going to want, besides again that almost like mental masturbation of victimhood mentality and just like giving ourselves little highs and lows and roller coaster rides of up, I feel really good, up, now I feel like shit, and just having those emotional swings. Like, do we really want that, or are we just addicted to those emotional swings? And I think like you said, it doesn't matter what we call our practice, we're moving and breathing.
Yeah.
If we are focusing on adding more quality moving and more quality breathing to our lives, that's going to change everything. And I think movement, when I used to think of movement, I would think of exercise. I would think of physical exertion. Oh, I have energy. Let me just go bust my body by doing some workout just because I need to move. But there's other sides to movement. Like you said, walking, if I were to say, I mean, when I do subscribe or recommend one form of movement to people, just freaking walk. It is the simplest, most effective exercise out there. And it can be yin or yang. You want to get a little bit of a sweat going? All right, walk fast,
Yeah.
walk
Walk
longer,
uphill, carry something with
walk
you.
uphill. Yeah, carry some shit, put away the vest on. You want to have it be restorative? Cool. Go for a nice, slow, relaxing walk. It's the perfect movement.
I often prescribe whatever, whether you're looking at your watch or you got a Fitbit or you've got your iPhone on you, you can pull up the health app and see, roughly or exactly how many steps you've walked on a day, right? Go back and look at your monthly average, add 50% and do that for a month. And, so if you're walking 10,000 steps a day, cool. Now you're walking 15, right? I swear to God, that is in my opinion, other than drinking more water and sleeping more, that's the number one thing, right? So it's in the, king, queen, jack realm of, we're playing with face cards here of importance when it comes to not only health, but here's the key for me, fitness, right? Because I can fitness all I want, but if I'm not walking in addition to the fitnessing, right? I need to keep my walking volume just as high, if not higher, to have that recovery and to get
Yes.
the lymphatic system flushed out and to get the blood flowing and frankly to continue building the connective tissue and have my body get used to increased volume, right?
Yes.
Uh, it's it's one of the best fat burners around, especially if you're adding a little bit of load, a little bit of load. Bring a 10-pound kettlebell or bring a 12 pack of water or get a 20-pound weight vest. Like it doesn't need to be 60 pounds to make a difference. Like
Right.
you can adjust as needed. So I'm a walking fiend, man. Walking fan, walking fiend.
Well, I like what you said about, helping with the fitness. Are you familiar with Elliot Hulse?
I'm not.
So he's a founder of Strength Camp. He was big on YouTube probably about a decade ago, and he took a break and just kind of recently had a reemergence, which brings back a lot of nostalgia for me, which is really cool.
Nice.
But yeah, he was one of my first big mentors I ever met. Those digital mentors that are people online that just you resonate with. And one thing, he just posted a video recently of someone. He does Q&As, like people will ask him a question, he'll make a video about it, and someone was saying, I've been really getting to strength training. My legs are really sore. Like, what do you recommend? Should I be stretching, foam rolling? And he said, do as many 10-minute walks a day as you can. Stop sitting so long. Stop letting lactic acid build up.
Hmm.
And his point was, you don't have to go for an hour walk. Just do a handful of 10-minute walks. Like, work for 2 hours, go for a 10-minute walk. Work for an hour, take a 10-minute walk. Like, whatever your interval is. But the message was, walk more, because it's actually going to make your body recover faster. It's going to help you get stronger. It's going to help with your mental clarity. It's going to get you breathing. It's getting you outside, breathing fresh air, so many different things. But I think we don't think of the holistic picture of what walking is doing to our
Right.
physiology. We're not meant to sit in chairs with like our legs in these weird angles
Right.
all the time. I remember, I forget who it was, but one of my mentors always said, if you can if you can be lying down instead of sitting,
Yeah.
lie down. It's like we should be standing or lying down. Like those are the two, or
Right.
squatting, but not sitting in these weird
Right.
chairs. And it's really interesting to me that a big takeaway from the retreat that Ed and I discussed on the way home was we need to lie down more in the middle of the
Hmm.
day, just for 10, 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be like an hour nap. But even yesterday, I set myself a timer for 20 minutes to take a little, meditation nap. I woke up after 15 minutes, felt absolutely recharged. Like the timer didn't even go off. I didn't even need the 20 minutes. All I needed was to lay down, close my eyes for 15 minutes and
Yep.
breathe. And I felt 100% better. And I couldn't even believe that. I was like, wow, my body wasn't really tired. It just needed
Micro
rest.
naps.
Didn't need sleep, micro naps. Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And it's true. And so many of us, especially with the sitting thing, um, I mean, think about from an evolutionary perspective, what people could even be sitting on, and like how often they were just sitting and chilling, you know, uh, moving and moving regularly. And to your point, not necessarily banging it for an hour or 45 minutes one time, but to, sprinkle that 1 hour walk over 6 10-minute time frames, and then add a 30-minute walk on top of that, right? And now you're cruising. Now you're cruising. Um, but I mean, it's a great point, and it illustrates the simplicity of the things that we're really talking about. And the other things I really like about walking, from maybe a biohacking standpoint, or a unsimplistic standpoint, right? You can stack a lot of things on top of that. I've got a standing rule of a no tech walk first thing in the morning, right? Where I take a chug of water, right? Maybe 10, 15 ounces of water. I turn on my hot pot for the coffee for when I come back, and I take like a third of a mile loop around, just a little lap, right? It takes less than 10 minutes, but I don't bring my phone. I'm outside, in the morning. Uh, a lot of times my walks include, okay, well, that's when I'm calling buddies. That's when I'm checking in with my folks, right? Or that's when I'm listening to podcasts. Maybe I'm doing my noon walk and I got my shirt off. I got my water bottle in a hand. So I'm getting sun, water, and, advancement or education, because I got a good podcast going and I'm learning some shit, right? I mean, there's so many things you can stack on top of one another with these healthy holistic practices that can really move the needle over a long period of time. And the other thing I really wanted to add about health and fitness, and changing that mindset and anything, dude, is just the consistency. the consistency, taking what the defense gives you. And it goes back to what you were saying with your mentors. Like, and I, dude, we're building businesses, right? We're working for ourselves largely, right? Like we get the ups and the downs. There's positives and negatives, whole 9 yards, right? The pendulum swings, and there's no offense on earth that scores every time they get the ball, right? Sometimes you're going to have to punt. Sometimes you throw a pick six. Sometimes the defense stuffs you for a 1 yard loss, right? And what do? Okay, cool. You go back in the huddle, you run the next play, right? You take what the defense gives you. And so having that perspective and realizing that in the grand scheme of things, it's like, middle of the second quarter for me, 33 years old, right? I've been on the personal development train, health and fitness wise for 12, 15 years, from other than that wise for 5. So I'm setting that trajectory. Like I'm in the air now, and that's the hardest part. I got the ground, I got the plane off, I'm in the air. I'm not in cruising altitude yet, but we got time. We got time. Right. And just staying consistent and just chopping at that. You can apply that to business. You can apply that to personal development. You can apply that to your most important relationships, right? Just, call your mom twice a week, right? If you've got a tough relationship with your dad, like, write him a letter once a week, once a month, right? Like it can just start to be these little things that build over time, but that add up and make a big difference. Big difference.
And I think that's something, like you said earlier, about like the rocket ship analogy.
Yeah.
Is in this instant gratification age, we all want everything and we wanted it yesterday. We don't want to wait. We don't even want to wait a week, let alone a year or 10 years or however long it takes to achieve whatever goal we're working towards. And I think that's something I need to constantly check myself with. Is usually my phone consumption is equal to my impatience. If I'm on my phone a lot, I'm usually more impatient. If I'm on my phone less, I'm usually more patient because I'm not getting blasted by scrolling up. That's boring. Up, next thing up. That's entertaining. Up, kind of bored now. Just like this whole, it's not, I don't think it's good for our brains, first of all. But, if you've ever seen The Social Dilemma, you are very well aware that these people are not idiots who are making these social media platforms. So they're addictive and they're intended to be. And, to some degree, they have every right to do that because it's a business and we're choosing to use their app. Do I agree with it? Not so much. But, at the end of the day, they're doing what's best for the business. I'm trying to, hold that posture of positivity here, but not that there's other dark things going on, because they would never do that behind the scenes.
Nothing sinister.
Yeah. Just for the business. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that it comes down to, where are we placing our attention and what are we using as a role model for success? Are we looking at these Instagram influencers or TikTok people and saying, oh, well, they blew up and got 1 million views overnight and now they're famous? I want that. I want to be viral.
Overnight successes, man. That's
right.
One of my favorite
yes,
things.
That's a whole. Yeah.
It's like, oh, dude, how's it feel to be an overnight success? Well, motherfucker, I've been working for so long to be that overnight success, right? And dude, curate your feed. I'm sure you've done this already, right? Like I have Facebook is my puppies and babies and all that shit stuff, right? Like I'll follow my friends on Facebook. Most of my friends I don't follow on Instagram, because the people that I follow on Instagram are mostly things that I want to see and that inspire me on a regular basis, right? Things that move me forward, things that give me education, people that I want to positively influence, right? If there's someone that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to gas this person, right? So like I'll just fucking liking and commenting on everything, right? Sharing the shit out of it, right? Like I want to use the platforms, because you're right, they are addicting, and there can be a whole bunch of negative things that come from them. And in the world that we're in now, you got email lists, you got websites, you got ads, you got social media, right? Obviously, the best way to meet and to build businesses is the way that you and I met, which is, in person, somewhat organically, right? And yeah, that was in a curated experience. So, that I found out about from social media. So it's a necessary evil. I think when we get in the poopy pants mindset is when we're in that comparison game. And I mean, what episode, how many episodes have you done for this podcast?
This will be number 60.
60. Hot damn. Do you have more listeners at 60 than you did at 6?
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Right? Yeah. And, you know, I would imagine if you go to 600, you'll have more listeners at 600 than you do at 60. Right. And, you know, like I also did I co-hosted a podcast. I think we got up to mid 40s in episodes, and, you know, that's no longer a thing, and that's all good. And what we learn over time is the key, is everything, right? It's not necessarily what we get at the end of the trip, right? At the end of a hike, there's rarely a pot of gold or a rainbow, right? Sometimes the pot of gold is the cold drink that's in the car, and you know, the fact that you're no longer hiking, right? Right? You know, like sometimes when something ends, it's there's no, you know, you don't win, right, per se. You didn't make money on it. You didn't, you know, XYZ, but there's benefits from going through those experiences, and keeping the trajectory at airplane mode as opposed to rocket ship mode means that we can be a little bit happier scrolling Instagram.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have that mentality that not everything we do is going to be the $1 million idea or the life-changing idea, or, you know, whatever the hope is for the idea. I mean, when I started Whole Health Connections, it was originally because I'd worked with or interned for a lot of great holistic practitioners in the Boston area. And so I wanted to refer people to them. And, you know, the business model is basically I refer, you know, client to this acupuncturist, this massage therapist, this holistic nutritionist, all these people that I knew and trusted, and then I get a commission. And, you know, that was cool. But then I realized it's taking me hours and hours to get a $40 commission. That's a one-time commission, and there's not much longevity or sustainability in that business model. Mm-hmm. And so I learned from that and said, hey, well, I could hire, you know, a software developer. I could make it this whole thing. But then it was like, that wasn't really what I was wanting, because that kind of took away from the personal piece, which is what I like, building the relationships with people. So I realized after about 6 months or maybe a little bit more that this is not a sustainable business approach. And yeah, I made a few $100 or however much I made from these little $30, $40 commissions, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the experience and recognizing, hey, there's actually a lot more, profitability. There's a lot more avenue to help people, because now I can expand beyond just my little sphere. Because even in Boston, people don't want to drive an hour to go, if they're north of Boston, to get to the people south of Boston. And it's just adapting and pivoting. And that's this constant game. And just like I said with the 100 days of running, if I ran 100 days straight, I learned very quickly on, I need to pivot from this because this isn't right. So it's a constant game of checks and balances. And it's not always about the result or the result we wanted, but the result that we needed.
1,000%, man. And, every time we talk, I've realized how many more parallels we have, right?
Right.
My company, when I left my financial planning gig in 2017, I created a company called GS Nation, which came from Get Strapped Nation, right?
Cool.
And the goal was to do a very similar thing in terms of building the relationships and connected, markets in Richmond. And until I realized, holy shit, I'm building this thing in Richmond, and I don't necessarily want to be in Richmond. Like I want to, the whole goal was to build it, hire people to run it, and then I go and do what I want to do. And I just had this like, holy shit moment. What if I just go do what I want to do now?
Crazy thought.
Dude, what a paradigm shift. Right? Changing your definitions too, changing your definitions of success, or rather defining your definitions of success, right? So I want to tell a story. January 1st, 2015, I had this thing. I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into shape. I'm starting to do these Spartan races. I want to get good at these, yada, 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 right? So I'm going to work out every day of the year in 2015. Cool, right? Started off strong, as we do on Jan 1. Right? And I took it longer than most. I got to 73 days of, wow. I called it the Keep Your Streak Alive Challenge, right? I got to 73 days and I got drunk on St. Patrick's Day and I forgot. And I woke up the next day in true Boston fashion. I was holding it down south for you guys. I woke up the next day and I was like, oh shit, I didn't do it, yada yada. And long story short, fell off the wagon, lost my momentum, didn't have the consistency, right? My goal was not met. And so thus I said, F it, and didn't keep going in any way, shape, or form, right? So the next year, right, later on that year, I ended up running, I think, 6 races in 2015 or something like that. I started to get a little bit better in it, and I set a very unreasonable goal for myself, right? There's a great Tim Ferriss quote that this reminds me of. There's no such thing as unrealistic goals or dreams, merely unrealistic timelines. So I set a goal for myself that I was going to qualify for the obstacle course racing world championships. At this point, I'm finishing like 700th, right? 500th overall, not like top 10 or 15 that I need to qualify, right? But I just set that trajectory to like, okay, here's kind of where I want to go, and here's where I am now. I'm just going to keep going, right? So the day before my birthday in 2016, so that next year, so February 15th, 2016, I committed to the streak again for that calendar year, right? For my birthday, for the 28th year of my life. But I changed my definition of success. I learned from the first time, right? So instead of working out every day, the definition of the streak for my purpose was setting aside time to make a concerted effort to better myself physically every day. Set aside time to make a concerted effort to better myself physically every day. And one of the big differences this time was the first streak I didn't tell anybody, and the second streak I didn't either until I got to day 100. And then once I got to day 100, I made a big post on Facebook about it and made it public and said, I'm going to do this for the rest of the year. And I started to have that momentum really build, right? People would ask me about it. And a lot of people, I think, would ask me about it wondering when I broke it, or when I was going to break it, yada, 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 right? Like, when am I going to fail? A lot of people said, hey man, keep going. This is rad, right? And the more I talked about it, the more positive vibes I got from it, the more influence I had from it. And when I got to a year, it was a no-brainer to keep going, especially with that definition, because the majority of the time, 5, 6, 7 days a week, sometimes, like, I'm doing a workout, I'm hitting it, I'm training, like I have goals that I want to accomplish over the long term. And that definition allows me to, when I do feel like trash, or my body's speaking to me, or my back's flaring up, cool, yin yoga day, right? Or cool, this is going to be a gentle walk. I may only get 5,000 steps a day tops, and that's okay. Count it, because I'm setting aside time to be intentional and better myself physically. And so, proud and happy to say that I'm over 5 years in, which is super rad. Day 1900 and something or else. The legend, the OG streaker, Ron Hill, was an British Olympic athlete. He was a runner ran in the 60s, I think 66 Olympics or whatever. This dude had a streak of 53 years, a run streak of 53 years. And he recently passed, I think a month or two ago, at 80 something years old. But over the first 50 years, he averaged 7 miles a day.
Wow.
So this guy's a savage. A Goggins, Cam Hanes, ish savage. And I don't, in any way, shape, or form put myself anywhere close to that category. But I do intend to stay streaking until I die. So, sometime in the 3-digit somethings. So we got a long way to go. A long way to go.
Well, it's funny too how we have this idea planted in our heads oftentimes that aging is a bad thing and it only gets worse as you get older.
Oh, dude, that's such a horseshit story.
It is. And I mean, I'm only 27, so it's like I feel like I still would be considered young by most people's definitions, but I'd say every year has gotten better. I'm learning more. I'm making more mistakes, which is good. I'm learning from those mistakes. I'm having more experiences. I'm figuring out what the hell goes on between my dome piece here. I'm figuring out how my body works a little bit better. I'm figuring out the relationships with other people a little bit better. I think I think it's far from the truth if you are mindful and intentional with your actions. I can totally see that perspective of things get worse when you age if you're just reinforcing bad habits and picking up more bad habits and just going down this. Like, I get that. And I see
Standard
that.
American diet for 30, 40
Right.
years sucks. That, that
Right.
adds up. Yeah.
And stinking thinking for 30, 40 years. I mean, you just have terrible thoughts, put shitty things in your body. That's going to result in bad relationships. I see that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to take the other side of the coin and say, hey, wait a second, things can actually get better every single year. I can get better every single year. My relationships can get better every single year. And I think that's one thing that seeing people like Paul Chek, who's 60 years old and still lifting like 500-pound stones, it just shows that if one person can do it, that means that that's not the curse for everybody. That when you're 60
Yeah.
years old, you're retiring, you're overweight, you're kind of worried about your health. You might have a couple chronic conditions, be on some pharmaceuticals. Like, that doesn't have to be the way. And in fact, we can actually get better instead of get worse. And like, how about that little paradigm shift?
It's not normal. It's normal because that's what the vast majority of
It's
people.
common. It's common, but not normal.
Common, but not normal. Yes, that's exactly the language that I'm searching for. It's common, but not normal. And we're all familiar with that phrase. If you use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. But if you do use it, you keep it, right? And I imagine everyone listening has met that old fucker, right? Who's like, in his 80s, you meet him, maybe it's your friend's dad, or maybe it's your granddad, or maybe it's, some guy at a trade show that you picked up, some fucking fruit from, and you shook his hand, and you're like, God, like, this guy would destroy me right now at 80 something, right? And it's just because he kept going, right? Most likely, that guy or very fit or vital gal that you see, right, loves life, has friends that they interact with, that family that means something to them, right? Eats natural things, moves regularly, right? Doesn't stress a whole lot, right? Doesn't create drama or create stress, right? Yes, we have stress over basic needs oftentimes, and once we get those set, if we can realize that all of our basic needs to this point have been met and they'll continue to be met, right? A lot of good things happen. And we're in control. We are largely in control of our lives moving forward. Some people were dealt shittier hands, and some people were dealt better hands. Some people got in on GameStop at $12. Some people are sitting with $500 shares at the top, right? Lost a ton of money, right? And cool, it's a new day. We all are responsible for how we age, right? And we can age with grace and dignity and vitality if we stay consistent with the things that we know are good for us, and if we continue to do those over time.
Love it. And there's also some of us that bought AMC and got a 20% gain and sold it, or the people that got AMC and got a 600% gain and sold it. So,
hey man, we take our L's. We were talking about something earlier, and it was a really interesting parallel to cryptocurrency or to stock investing or to, many of these types of things is, we're not going to win every time. Right. And quite frankly, like, if we win like 53% of the time and lose 47% of the time, like, a day trader will take that all day long.
Right. I mean, and realistically, I mean, getting 20% gain on the stock is still pretty good. I mean, it's still a solid gain, but it's just like when you see it, sell it at like $20 or whatever, and then you see it go up to 66 2 days later, it's like, well, that kind of sucks. But
so then you have your FOMO, you have your lessons, right? You exactly. Realize that, okay, next time, like, I'm going to take a little bit of those profits, but not all of them. You realize, okay, cool, maybe I'm not going to get in early on this thing, or get in late on this thing, right? And it's similar to, looking at businesses that have failed or that, have and I'll say this, have failed, quote unquote, right? Or relationships that have, quote unquote, failed, right? In reality, when I look back on my life, I moved through space and time spending my space and time doing something that I'm no longer doing. And in many ways, I was interacting with people who I'm no longer interacting with, or I'm, working on something or spending my time doing something that is no longer meaningful or valuable to me in any way, shape, or form, or that I'm no longer connected with. And yet that doesn't necessarily mean that those things were failures.
Right.
In many ways, those things shape us and help give us experiences that we can draw and relate to as time goes on.
100%.
And tell us what not to do and
Right.
what not to focus on and what we don't want, which is super fucking valuable as we're eliminating options.
100%. Do you use Audible?
I used to use Audible a lot, but the bill got expensive for the if I can get 3 books for $20, fine, but 1 for 20 was like,
So on Audible they're having like some sales. So I got this book, How to Win the Sport of Business by Mark Cuban. I don't know if you've ever listened to that. It's good. It's like 2.5 hours, and he makes one point there. Obviously, he's a big sports guy, and he says, if you're playing basketball and you're shooting 50%, you're an all-star. You're making 50% of your shots, you're an all-star. If you shoot 10% more, you're a Hall of Famer. Like your first ballot Hall of Famer shooting 60% from the floor, like you're one of the best players ever. In baseball, if you hit, 30% of the time up, maybe even a little less, you're a solid player. You hit 10% more, you hit like 40% of the time, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. But in business, all you need is to win once. Mm-hmm. You need one home run. You don't need to hit a home run every time. You don't even need to hit 30% of the time or shoot 50% of the time. You just need once. If you have that one idea, you can have all these other experiences that are, like you said, failures, but they're really just getting you closer to that, one idea. And maybe you don't have one idea, but the point is that we don't have to win every single time we do something, because it's leading us to that one victory, which is ultimately where we want to be.
And a lot of guys carve out a great career hitting singles and doubles.
Right. Absolutely.
Defense, right?
Right.
Making yourself valuable in another way, right?
Right.
Gary Vaynerchuk Gary V has another similar quote that he talks about when he says that, nobody's undefeated, right?
Right.
There's very few teams ever go undefeated, like if ever, right? And so people need to start thinking in terms of, their business careers or, whatever, in terms of like sports, like cool, like, I'm 32 and 27, on the season. Like, cool. Made the playoffs.
Right. Made the playoffs.
I'm like the 5th seed, right? Like I can be dangerous if I get hot, right? Like, like I'm in the dance. We're doing good. We're moving. We're heading the right direction. We're trending forward. We got good young players. We got high draft picks. We got good coaching. We got a great training facility. Like these are foundations for long-term success. So it's not necessarily about hitting the home runs. And yet, if you do hit that homer, deuces, bat flips, see you later, and in reality, when you were talking about hitting 60 and retiring, and living 5 years and losing purpose and, now on pharmaceuticals and et cetera, man, like that's the story that we've been told. That's the program we've been fed. That's the information we've been receiving since many of us were little kids, right? And work hard, get good grades, go to school, you'll graduate, you'll get a job, you find a girl or a guy, you marry him, you have kids, you get a house, you work till you're 60 and you save a little bit of money and you retire, right? And then you die, right? Fuck that, dude. It doesn't have to be that way, And I think what I've realized is you can do anything you want in this world. You can't do everything. You can do anything. And if you get really clear on what you want to do and with whom you want to do that with and where you want to do that, life can get a whole lot more interesting. And then you can live with capital letters. to loop it all the way around, you can live. That can be the beautiful part of life, and the best part of life is actually living, thriving, as opposed to existing or surviving. And you got to have intention to do that.
100%. Well, we just brought it full circle nicely here. So everybody who's listening just needs to go out and live is really what it comes down to. And what I'm going to do as soon as we hop off here is go for a little walk, and then I'll get back and break my fast. And, as I've been getting back into this strength training regime, I've been needing to eat a lot more calories, which is great because one of my goals is to put on some muscle. So looking at 8 pounds of muscle by the end of the summer is the target goal, which is definitely doable. Got a few months. That's like a pound a week. I mean, it's totally doable. Doing creatine too. So, it's definitely doable to get 8 pounds. Yeah. So gains are coming. So but I felt, my digestive system is getting a little bogged down. So I haven't done a fast in a few weeks. So I'm going to break the fast after the walk here. But where can people follow along with Choppin Dave, Trooper Don, Trooper Todd? Where can they get strapped and stay strapped?
Whole 9 yards. Right there on Instagram at Get Strapped, Stay Strapped on the gram. And my website is workyourstories.com. Workyourstories.com. I'm a coach. I help people with their stories and the words they're using and how those words create their reality. So I would love to chat with folks. Would love a follow, and to hit me up with some nice banter, health and fitness related banter on the gram. I'm always down for. So appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with you, bro. It's a pleasure, always is. And to my 3-week-old to our 3-week-old friendship, let's
keep going.
Chopping, dude.
Awesome, brother. And as I said, I want you to let me know when the next Spartan race is, because I'll be there as long as it aligns with my schedule. I'll be there.
August 28th in West Virginia.
August 28th, West Virginia. Write that down.
You got 3 options. You got the half marathon, you got the 10K, you got the 5K. They're all on a ski resort in West Virginia. Beautiful, beautiful Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, I'll be there. The squad will be there. The Kinnis guys will be there. The Barefoot Kinnis Company, Barefoot Shoe Company, all those folks will be there. So come on down, bro.
Hell yeah. August 28th, West Virginia. All right. I'm going to check out my calendar after this.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here. Let's hit up Rob if you're listening.
It's still recording. So this is on the live stream here. So we are, it's on the calendar now. So gonna have to make that happen. Fuck.
All right, brother. I know. Hit me up after. We'll talk about it.
All right. Sounds good, brother. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Trooper Don. See you soon, brother.
Boom.
What's up, my friends? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast with our guest, Dave Robinson. So, Trooper Don, Chopper Dave, Stripper Todd. As you've seen, this dude is a real one. And it's really been an incredible pleasure to have the opportunity to really meet and connect with this guy at a very deep level very quickly. There's sometimes you meet people, seems like you've known them forever, as you may have seen in this episode here, that we've only known each other for a short amount of time, but definitely he's a brother. He's a real one, and I'm very excited to see what this dude is doing in the future. And as of recording this right now, he mentioned he was doing a Spartan race, and guess what? He finished second in his age group. So send Chopper Dave a congratulations message on Instagram. As I mentioned, I'm going to put all the links to his stuff in the description box here. So thank you for all the support. If you want to learn more about what I'm up to, you can go to my website, wholehealthconnects.com, see other podcast episodes, learn about my new coaching program for men, discussing how we can not only grow ourselves into the best version of ourselves, but also learn how to grow some of our own food, as I feel that is an incredibly vital skill for men to have in this day and age. And then you can also find some of the organic superfoods I work with. So these are great tools. Like we mentioned, lifestyle comes first. But at the end of the day, sometimes supplements, superfoods can be the icing on the cake that really takes things to the next level. I know it has for me, so I'm very excited to share those with you. You can check all that out on my website and more. So thank you as always for your support. Please like, subscribe, share this episode if you found this to be valuable to you, and spread the love. So thank you again. I love you. Have the best day ever. Talk to you soon.